You ever drink like that through a straw because you're wearing lipstick that hasn't dried yet? Excuse me? Cool bits. Just, this is the part, like, seriously, I'm giving you forewarning. If you have just eaten, get a bucket or wait 20 minutes. I don't care which. Oh, serial killers. I feel like a psycho being this excited about that, but I just love it. So this lady's name, so she is, now you have to excuse me because she's Italian, much like my Norwegian Belgamas. I cannot pronounce shit in this video, so we're gonna give it a crack and then we're just gonna go with like the easiest version. So her name was called Leonarda, Leonarda Cianciulli, I think. I feel like it's gonna be like a ch or a k instead of a s. So she was born born in Montella, Avellino, in 1894, on April 18th. She, honestly, there's not an awful lot known about her childhood in general, only that in her teenage years she did have 2 failed suicide attempts, which is quite sad, I think, because that's like the only information about her entire childhood is that she had 2 failed suicide attempts. That's just, I don't know. So she was actually a child of rape though, so I can't imagine that her childhood was overly fantastic. So she was raped, her mum was raped, sorry. Her mum was raped and fell pregnant with her. So her mum, Emilia Dinolfi, was forced to marry her rapist because she was pregnant. I guess this was back in a time where they didn't really believe that she was raped, and if they did believe it, it didn't matter. It's the late 1800s. It probably, anyway, not the point. We're not going back into women's rights here. So she was raped by Mariano Cianciulli. Look, Mariano, basically, like, when the pregnancy was discovered, everyone was like, right, you're all getting married. And she's like, he raped me, and they're like, we don't care. So it's a very turbulent upbringing. They did live in a very poverty-stricken part of Italy. Her father did pass away when she was very young, which honestly doesn't sound that much of a loss. At least not to the world. Maybe he was a really good father. I don't know. Her mum did remarry, but unfortunately that did not really help at all financially for the family. Her mum is said to have been emotionally abusive, which is what led to her 2 suicide attempts. So she did get married. She married a registry office clerk named Raphael Passardi at 22 years old in 1917. Her parents did not agree at all. They didn't approve. Because they did actually have a much more wealthy suitor lined up for her that they wanted her to get married to, and this was kind of like a smack in her face, in her parents' faces, to be like, nah, fuck you, I'm doing what I want. So her parents did refuse to give their blessing, and Leonarda actually went on to believe that her mother had cursed her life, which honestly is kind of believable, with all of the shit that went down from that point forward. So they basically, after they were married, they moved to Lauria, which is a town in the commune, located in the now province of Potenza. So they moved there in 1921, and they basically immediately had financial troubles. Pensardi's earnings were not supporting their family. They were having kids and stuff. Also worked, but she was actually arrested in 1927 for fraud. I think she was writing bad checks, and she did go to prison. After she was released, they did actually move again. They moved to Lacedonia, which was a commune located in the now province of Avellino in Italy. In 1930, so this is where the real shit. So she goes to prison. That was her own fault, in my opinion. Like, dude, don't be, you know. In 1930, though, they did lose their house in an earthquake. I don't know why I'm laughing. Stop laughing. Oh my God. So this time they moved to Correggio. Correggio. Look, the town that she's famous for. And And they finally had some stability, and Leonarda opened a small soap shop. So they were doing well. They were doing great. They were doing fantastic. She was very well known and liked in the community. People used to come to her for advice and, you know, a cool chick, you know. Like, she was a local... She was the soap shop lady. Before they moved to Correggio, like, throughout the time of their marriage, she had 17 pregnancies. She only had 4 kids by the time they moved to Correggio. So she had 17 pregnancies, she had 3 miscarriages, and 10 of her children passed away for various reasons while they were still very young. Whether that be in infancy or adolescence, it doesn't really go into much detail, but they were born living normal children and died for various ailments and reasons and accidents. So she had actually seen a fortune teller prior to her marriage who told her that all of her children would die young. So she was down to 4 of 17, which is really sad to think about. And years later, she did actually see a palm reader who said she saw prison on her right and criminal asylum on her left. And that will make sense a little bit later. So of her remaining 4 children, she was fiercely protective. So like when I first read that 10 of her children had passed, I was kind of like, what? But reading her relationship with her remaining children and how protective that she was of them, I don't think that could have been the case. Like, I don't see why you would be so fiercely protective of 4 of them but not the others. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to 1939. In 1939, Italy was led by the fascist Benito Mussolini. He wanted Italy to enter the war on Germany's side. So basically, the government were recruiting the army or whatever, were recruiting, and Giuseppe Pensati, who was her eldest and came to be known as her favorite child, had been designated to be a part of the Italian army. She was already paranoid about losing her kids, but now she was just like he was directly in the line of fire at this point when he goes to the army. So she was like, she'd gone from like paranoid to like next level. And basically she was just like, I have to protect him. I have to protect him. I have to protect him. Obviously going to fortune tellers and stuff is pretty obvious that she was into that stuff. And so she thought her only option, of course, because what other option would there be other than human sacrifice? So we have to kind of go back a little bit as to what Leonarda, so Leonarda made quite a reputation for herself, not only as like someone that people would go to chat about their troubles and their lives and, you know, just like a pit stop. She made quite a reputation for herself as a fortune teller, which I think is kind of funny considering she had to go and see fortune tellers to see her own fortune. Or can fortune tellers not see their own fortune? They can only see other people's. She did only kill 3 people, but when you find out the details, like, whew. Look, it's a lot, so if you've just eaten, I recommend waiting 20 minutes before continuing. So all of her 3 victims were her clients, who basically came to her seeking advice. So Faustina Setti was the first known victim. So her name was Faustina Setti. She was a middle-aged unmarried woman who went to Leonardi to help her in finding a husband because, like I said, she was a fortune teller as well. So she told Faustina that her suitor was in Pola, which is now known as Croatia, but told her not to tell anybody that she was going there. She also had her write letters and postcards and everything to all of her family and leave them with Leonarda so that Leonarda could basically like send them back to her family so that they didn't go looking for her and all that sort of shit. And so they didn't get worried. So the day she was due to leave for Poland, she came back to say goodbye and I suppose and thank you to Leonardi. Leonardi drugged her wine. that was it. So when she drugged her wine, once she was unconscious, she murdered her. Just, this is the part, like, seriously, I'm giving you forewarning. If you have just eaten, get a bucket or wait 20 minutes. I don't care which. Or unless you have a stomach of steel, I suppose. So once Faustina was unconscious, she murdered her with an axe, and then she dragged her into a closet. Once in this closet, she cut her body into 9 pieces, and collected all the blood into a basin. So she put the 9 pieces into a pot. Recipe if you want one. Added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which is sodium hydroxide, and stirred it until it turned into a thick dark mush, and proceeded to dump it in a nearby septic tank. So the blood was left to coagulate. It was then dried in an oven. It was ground down and mixed with flour, sugar, margarine, milk, eggs, just milk and eggs, and she made tea cakes and served them to visitors, her son, and herself. Leonardi somehow did get money from Faustina. I don't know if this is because that she had them remove all of their savings from their accounts or their appropriate places or what. So I suppose that they just had it on them. So Leonardi got her life savings, which was 30,000 lira. I did try so hard to figure out what lira would be today, but it was really hard to figure out because lira isn't used anymore. So yeah, she got a bunch of money. The next victim was Francesca Soavi. She was a middle-aged unmarried woman who Leonardi had told she'd found her a job at an all-girls school in Piacenza, I don't know, which is now northern Italy. Soavi wrote the same letters to the friends and family to say ciao. To friends and family. She went to say ciao to Leonardi. She drank the drug wine and basically suffered the exact same fate as Faustina did as well. Leonardi got 3,000 lira from her death, which was said to have occurred on September 5th, 1940. So, I mean, they were a little bit apart, I think. So her third and final victim's name was Virginia no idea. Virginia. She was actually a former soprano star and reportedly performed at a famous opera house in Milan called La Scala. Now, I don't know why in the hell you would do someone so high profile, girl, calm down. Anyway, so Leonarda informed her of a job opportunity in Florence for a mysterious impresario. I had to fucking figure out what that was because I had no idea, and basically the definition for it is a manager of a musical, theatrical, or operatic company, organizes and often finances concerts, plays, or operas. So once again, the same letters were written, she was killed in the same way, all that stuff. There was a couple quotes from Leonardi that I'm going to read out regarding Virginia because shit's nasty. She ended up in the pot like the other two. Her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some most acceptable creamy soap. So she made soap out of Virginia rather than just tea cake. I gave bars to neighbours and acquaintances. The cakes too were better. That woman was really sweet. So from Virginia's death, she managed to acquire 50,000 lire in money and assorted jewels and stuff like that. Virginia actually ended up being her undoing. So Virginia's sister-in-law became really suspicious of her disappearance and reported it to authorities, advising she had last seen Virginia entering the Leonardi's home. Leonardi was arrested. She originally denied everything, but then they basically said that they were going to go after Giuseppe, her oldest and most favorite child, for the murders, and that's when she basically just kind of spilled everything and confessed and gave that disgusting so So she was known as the soap maker of Correggio, however you say that. It would sound so much cooler if I knew how to say it. But yeah, it's honestly, like, she's something. So there are actually artifacts from the case, including the pot that she used to boil her victims. They are now displayed at the Criminological Museum in Rome. There have been several story adaptations and films and a stage play, I think. In 1979, there was a play named Love and Magic in Mama's Kitchen. And then in 1977, I say then like 1979 comes before 1977. Moron. 1977, the film called Gran Bolito was an adaptation of her story as well. So yeah, all really fucking chilling. Let me know if you know of anyone more gruesome, because, well, I mean, there's definitely people more gruesome out there, but like, she served them. Like, it's one thing to be a cannibal, I think, but it's another to serve them to your neighbors and acquaintances without them knowing. I'm pretty sure her son probably didn't know either. Anyway, let me know what you think of good old Leonardi. If you know any other details that I missed, feel free to comment them below. I'm all for discussions and things. If you guys are liking this content, please, if you guys are liking all this shit, please feel free to let me know. If you guys want anything in particular from me, again, feel free to let me know. I'm obviously still very new to this, so I'm all up for constructive criticism and suggestions. Just don't be an ass about it and we'll be cool. I'm gonna love you and leave you. Have a nice night. And I'm rambling again. I'm gonna shut up now.